This is take 2 of the poppy field painting. I decided to have a second go because I wanted to show you how to do the second layer. Now the first layer, I think I was using this, yeah. Oh yeah, look at that, lazy artist. This is how you can, by the way, clean a knife. There you go. So now I've got that. This is my favorite knife because it actually has a shorter and a longer edge. So I can paint like that, or I can just use the shorter one. I think these two are going to be enough. I put 3 colors out here. Now these are not the exact same 3 that I started the painting with. I started with cadmium yellow medium hue, cadmium red light, and phthalo blue from Daily Running Graduate. But this time I'm going to use the phthalo blue. Yeah, that's fine. But instead of the cadmium yellow medium, just so you can see the difference, this is much darker. This is a lighter one. It's not exactly lemon, but it's a primary yellow. The mixture of those, the primary yellow and the phthalo blue, is going to give me some much more vivid greens. So you can see that the greens are livelier than the ones that I have on the paper here. Now the third color is, instead of cadmium red light, I'm going to use permanent rose. Now the thing is, a Daily Running Graduate is okay. Never mind. So let's crack on. My blue, my red, and my yellow are going to be there, so I can replenish anytime I run out of colors. When you start working with any of these colors, chances are you are going to run into a few issues. Number one, these previous layers that I showed you last time, now they have caked on, which is perfect. They are going to capture the new layers. They're going to capture the new layers of color as you paint on top. This is just a piece of 300 gram per square meter watercolor paper, A3 size. If you work on a canvas, then you might end up with some really heavy, very strong textures. And actually add a lot more texture than what you see here. I'm going to crack on with some of these greens. So I picked up a bit of this light blue, which I mixed with my phthalo blue and white, and I added a little bit of the yellow to it. I will probably, when you mix colors, when you mix a new hue, you don't mix the whole blob. You pick up a portion of it, and then you pick up a portion of the modifying color, and then you mix those two. If you're still not happy, then you pick up a portion of that, and again you modify that. So this is the way to avoid ending up with the wrong color blob taking over your entire palette. Now I'm happy with this. Now if you're ever wondering if this is the right color, you can just hang it, you can just hold it upside down against your canvas there. I'm going to use a bit more of the green, of the yellow here, a bit more of the yellow. I need a very nice bright green for the foreground here. So yeah, I think this is going to be great, and I just pick it up. So I picked up about that much. You see, it's a fairly large, even blob, and I'm going to just spread it up there. And as you see, I'm running out of color with each one of these strokes, so I go back for more, and then I take it from the edge of the canvas, and I can do a little bit of wiping this way, that way, because in the end you have these various kind of grasses that are bending this way and that on the field. Also, I'm going to create a bit of a very strong, warm yellow, and I think I like it. Yeah. What I can also do is pick up some of this and see where else I can add something similar that will blend in with what I already have on the canvas. And I want to have a lighter version of this almost lime green, and add it there. There you go. Yeah. And then I come back with the same light color and add a little bit more in the foreground. So as you see, I just carry on working with the green, with the one green pretty much. And each batch so each time I load my palette knife with new color, because you run out of colors very quickly. Each time you load your knife with colors, you will be mixing a slightly different type. And don't worry about that, it's as it should be. Now I have this very nice light green. I'm going to add it onto the trees here, so it looks like sun-bleached, the type of trees that are, you know, when the sun shines on them. And yeah, I'm actually happy with that. Yeah. Now I go back to my blue, I scrape off a little bit more of the blue, and I want to get a nice turquoise color here. Now if you're not, this is basically a very quick painting session. I just wanted to show you. Normally you would be having a palette that's either a plate or something that is a stack of these throwaway palettes, and you can add some of that. So I'm adding the cooler version of this turquoisey green for the areas that are in the shadow. I can add more of the blue, and this is when this sort of a color, it becomes wonderful, because if you add just a little bit here, it will look almost like blue. It's not really blue, but what it does, it's going to add a gorgeous variety of colors on top, and it's going to have quite a bowl with that original almost orange background. That was my initial first wash on this paper. So there it is. Let me lift it up for you. So that is the variety of colors that you get, and then that's the tree up there, and that's the line of trees as they disappear. Now on this area, as well as on the other side, I wanted to make sure that that there is no major contrast. So there's a bit of a contrast there. There's of course this big sweep of red, but I try to turn the two sides into a fairly washed off, smudgy sides, because I want to keep the viewer in the center, looking at what's going on in the middle of the canvas. Now I'm picking up a bit of this green, adding a bit more of the blue, and that's something that you can I think I'm happy with that. Any of the finer lines or any of the sharp lines that you add are going to have the effect of capturing the viewer. So, you know, the viewer will just go there and try to figure that area out. That's the effect you have on the viewer. Now I need just a tissue. You don't need to wash the knife, you just wipe it. And then I'm going to pick up this little bit of pink. So I will add a bit of the white to make sure that it's not it will be opaque. If any of your colors ever are too transparent, you can just add a bit of titanium white to them, and then they will be all of a sudden opaque. Now, something that was going on this field is this very particular small flower that was purple, or this, you know, violet hue, and I very much loved it. So I'm going to add a bit of that. I might add a bit on that side over there, maybe there, and you can also just go and have a bit of a sweep with the knife. You don't have to keep it all red. And there is one more thing. When you have a nice range of colors right here, this is obviously, yeah, those are poppies. You will have, I might actually go back with my poppy red, which is medium red, and I can add a little bit of those in the front. So right on top of everything else, just to make sure that you're re-establishing whatever was here. So people know it's, yes, it is a poppy field, but it has other flowers as well. Okay. So I would say now go and do likewise. And I would love to have a bit more of this blue with the permanent rose, which is a very purpley type of a color. And I think I'm going to add it right here. Now, it might not look like much on, you know, from that distance, but if I bring it up close, you see that it actually gives a very nice range to these greens. Because when it comes to green, let me pick up a color wheel here. So this is a different color wheel. It's 3 different colors, not primary, but you see what happens here is that the purples are opposite the yellows, and the greens, which is, I'm using now the full range of the greens when I'm establishing this. And when you work on an impressionistic artwork, the most beautiful thing is to make sure that when you are using a color, let's say it's the green, you're not just using the one green, which might be a Lego green, that if I mix those two in the appropriate portion, it would very much look like a Lego green. But you stretch that green towards the yellowy green, the more yellow, the lighter versions of everything, all these lighter tints, mixing them with the white, and also stretching it towards the blues, and maybe even going into, for the shadows, for the deep shadows, you can very well add a purple. So I'm talking about all these colors. I want to use all of these colors, everything from yellow through greens, through blues, and maybe even some dark purples, So there is a very wide version of everything that can be used for green, to signify green in a landscape. Now what happens here is that this brings a landscape to life. This is how you make sure that your landscape is not dead. It's not one of those boring, supposedly realistic, but come on, like, can you really get realistic and paint all those gorgeous greens, everything, all the types, different kinds of greens that there are in nature? Of course not. You're kidding yourself if you think you can do, if you can paint realistically. You can't really, it doesn't exist. Now, the other thing to do is perhaps get a little more white here. Yeah. And create a bit of a sky color that will help these greens and purples to tie in with the sky. Now, in order to do that, like just today as I was walking the dog in the forest, the sky had this wonderful mixture of hazy blue, hazy orange, even hazy pink. So you can add this, you can start picking it up and start smearing it on and have these wonderful basically a range of colors in the sky, but all of them a very, very light tint. Now that's a bit darker than I intended, but I'm using a very thick layer of colors here. But what you see here is these palette knife marks now communicate with the rest of the painting. Wherever else I have these palette knife marks similar. I can also pick up a bit of the whites just with the tip and add some white marks, especially if there is a darker patch of color. So you can make sure that you can add some interest by adding light marks on dark background, dark marks on light background, cool marks against dark or warm colors, and vice versa. So this is how you add a bit of an interest. There's a bit of a texture, and now my light purples, I think they're okay. I wonder if I should add a bit of that onto the trees here. Do I? Let me see, just a little bit, because I know especially the poplars, they have a tendency of looking like a silvery, almost light blue set of leaves. So I would say I'm probably happy with what I have here. Again, I'm going to lift it up so you see the details. This was the second layer, and you see the various range, that full range from yellow, light green, light yellow, dark bluey, turquoisey, all the way to the deep purple. That's all the various greens. I'm stretching it compared to the colors that I see in real life. But then again, the main thing, one of the stuff you need to do is basically climb out of the size of your canvas and somehow grab the viewer's attention, and the only way to do that is by exaggerating a little bit. So please go ahead, have fun, and now you know that in the second layer, when you go on top and start picking up and adding those broken color effects, you don't have to use the exact same colors. You can, but you don't have to. It's worth creating a color wheel with your new colors, again, just so you know exactly what colors you you have as an option there. Okay, have fun.